I like birding a lot. Birding is fun. Birding, you can do it with friends, you can do it in groups, you can do it alone, you can do it everywhere, anywhere, anytime. Birds are all over the place, so, you know, birding happens at all times.
That's right. And a happening place for summer birding in the United States is the annual Tucson Audubon Bird and Wildlife Festival. This is Rex Graham, editor of Birds News, in Tucson in August. What a surprising experience.
August really is an awesome time for Arizona and southeast Arizona to be birding. You have, first of all, you have all these different biotic zones coming together, meeting, overlapping, which creates huge, incredible biodiversity on its own. Then you have the monsoon rains, which are making everything flower and leaf up. And then you have migration is underway. For many species, they're already beginning their fall migration, coming down to this area. So, and then you also have the rains bringing Mexican vagrants up into this area. So you have birds coming down, coming up. Some birds are actually just waiting to nest right now. So there's tremendous activity. This is the peak time for hummingbird numbers and diversity, peak warbler diversity. This is really when it's happening for birding, is in August.
Tropical kingbird at the tree over there. There's a male blue grosbeak perched over here. There are yellow-breasted chats calling off to our right. I can hear a Bell's Vireo singing off to our right. Lazuli bunting's calling.
Yesterday I went to a trip California Gulch, and that was a day I would say for sparrows. Things like five-striped sparrow, but there was rufous-winged, Bateris, cassins. It was a whole list of sparrows, and they were fabulous. But it wouldn't be, I'm just picking out, that's from yesterday, but picking out, I mean the day before was warblers. It was absolutely red-faced, graces, olive warbler. It's been absolutely fabulous. I cannot really see how good it is, but my biggest surprise has been how green it is. The area, it's like sort of, yeah. I had this preconception in my mind where Arizona was going to be bone dry, terracotta sort of ochre coloured sort of areas, and just not as full of life as this. Totally. So it's challenged me preconceptions.
Our most rainy season is in late summer, the summer monsoons. And what that does is it makes all of these different life zones erupt in plant activity and insect activity, which is just great for birds. So the deserts totally green up. It's the only time of year where our grasslands are actually green. The rest of the year they're yellow. And these sky islands, it creates a second spring. You have flowers just blooming all over the sky islands in late summer going into fall because of these monsoon rains. One of these sky islands is the Santa Rita Mountains, where at the base of the mountains is a large grassland. So as you start to move up in elevation, you come to the mouth of Madera Canyon, one of the most famous bird watching spots in all of southeast Arizona. And up into Madera Canyon, it's a shady, moist canyon. There is springs and creeks flowing through it, so you get these sycamore trees and sort of lush, moist habitat that is excellent for many bird species. And it's a little higher in elevation, so it's cooler, so that water stays around. And then you get birds like elegant trogons, sulfur-bellied flycatchers, all sorts of different warblers will use this habitat because it's very lush and moist, and it's full of insects and full of flowering plants and full of food, and that's exactly what these birds are looking for.
When you add the summer rains to the Sky Island's secret sauce of high and cooler elevations and rich plant and insect life, something magical happens.
There's a little known sort of bubble of Mexico extending up into southeast Arizona. And what's causing that is when you look at a map, many maps kind of just cut off at the US border. But if you look at a map, if you look at the big picture that shows both northern Mexico and Arizona, there is this very long chain of mountains working their way up, almost like a spine, working their way up through Sonora, and it keeps going, and it's the Madrean Sky Islands. And when birds that live in those sky islands of Mexico find their way up, just kind of island hopping up that chain of mountains, find their way in southeast Arizona where that chain sort of ends in the United States, we get birds from Mexico coming up into Arizona, where people who love to list their birds and keep track of how many they see in their lifetime, the only place to get those birds within the U.S. boundary is in southeast Arizona.
For me, summer in Arizona means hummingbirds. I oohed and awed with everybody else around the feeders at the Tucson Audubon's new conservation property in Patagonia, Arizona.
August, right now, when these monsoon rains are coming through, this is the peak time for hummingbirds, both in terms of diversity as well as just raw quantities of individual hummingbirds coming through.
In addition to the elegant trogon, there are 37 other glamour species. These shy, colorful beauties are much easier to spot during the summer monsoons.
A target bird for many, many birders visiting southeast Arizona is Montezuma quail. It's a beautiful little quail, has beautiful plumage and spots, very unusual looking bird, and they're very, very secretive. They're tough to find. You have to be in just the right habitat, and they're especially less hard to find. They're always hard to find, but less hard to find during the monsoon time. This is an elf-owl. Elf-owl is one of my favorite birds. They're a very special bird, which is part of why we made them our little mascot for the Tucson Bird and Wildlife Festival. This is actually the smallest owl in the world. It is officially the tiniest, and they're just so adorable. They will breed throughout several habitats in southeast Arizona. They do very much favor this type of habitat, the saguaro Sonoran Desert habitat. They nest in cavities, so they like these holes in the saguaros created by woodpeckers, and they have an amazing call that they do. It sounds like a little elf or fairy laughing out in the desert, which is where their name comes from, elf-owl.
The annual Tucson Audubon Bird and Wildlife Festival has friends in high places. And I don't mean in the sycamores of Madera Canyon.
Well, I'm glad that the annual Tucson Audubon Society is gaining a national reputation. It's long deserved one. It is, first of all, we emphasize in this community ecotourism, and the idea that the Audubon Society would bring to our community people from all over the United States, and probably, I'm guessing, places all over the world to Tucson, one, to get together, to learn, to enrich their education, but also to get out and see what's here. This society and this festival is long-standing, bringing great speakers, bringing great events, and great experiences for anyone who loves birds. That's a huge help to our economy, and we really try to promote it and do everything we can to develop it.
The driving force for the annual festival is Tucson Audubon's executive director, Paul Green.
So Tucson Audubon is organizing this festival for a number of reasons. Obviously, just celebrating the joy of birds and birding is great, and that's very important because that is what people's passion is. We have a bigger agenda here, though, of course, which is these birds require certain habitats in which they thrive across the nation, across the continent, but these habitats are under threat for different reasons. We have our own complete unique set of habitats in this region, and a lot of our work is addressing those threats with conservation action. There's a couple of programs that we do. One is the Important Bird Areas program that identifies the most important areas for birds and then seeks to protect those areas. Another is the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan, which tries to direct development away from key biological areas so that development happens on areas that aren't so biologically important, and making sure that when development does occur, that significant areas are actually maintained as open space.
All birds face new global threats.
So one of the most important threats to bird habitat is climate change. We're ground zero for climate change in North America, and the changing climate is already changing habitats and destroying habitats, which means that birds are having to move. We're working on a project with National Audubon to educate our population about the effects that climate change is going to have on the birds that they see in their backyards, because the effects are real and they're beginning to happen now.
Margaret Mead once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." Something like that is at work in Tucson.
So when people give to us significant amounts of money to help us with a project, This isn't just a simple transaction, it's an interaction. They are wanting to achieve something that they can't achieve on their own, but through making a donation to Tucson Audubon, we can make sure that their goals are achieved and our goals are achieved too. So it's an important social interaction between us and them, and they often become fully involved in the project as we move it forward.